Hello, in this video I want to introduce you to increasing techniques in peyote, and we start with a center increase in the middle of your row, and we need to take a row where your center bead here is a low position, as you can see, and then you add in this position where you want to make your increase 2 beads instead of 1. The rest of the row is made in the usual way. This is the first row for this increase. And now in the next row, we will just treat these 2 beads in the center as if they were 1. So we're just adding a bead before and after, and we're just passing through both beads at once. You see, I picked an odd count peyote here to have an even look, to have a center position. Of course, you can also practice this in even count peyote, but just to have a clean look, I made it like this. Okay, now the third row. In the third row, I do the same again like in the first row. I will add 2 beads in that center position. And the rest of the row is made in the usual way. Now when I come back to my middle position, so I first add my 2 beads, the first 2 positions here, but then I exit in the middle of that pair that I just added. Then I add a single bead in the middle of my pair and proceed with the rest of the row as usual. See, I have 2 more lower beads now and 1 bead in the middle. Now when I go back, I will add 1 bead in the first position, then 1 bead before my new middle bead here, and 1 bead after my new middle bead. So in this way, I made 3 beads out of 1 bead. That brings me an increase of 2 beads. So when I'm weaving back now the next row, you can see that I have a total of 9 beads in my row now, instead of 7 that I had before I was working this increase. And if I counted correctly, I spread my increase over 4 peyote rows. So 2 rows forth and 2 rows back. I'm not counting these 2 rows that I made after the increase, just the increase itself was over 4 rows. Now, count, you see there are 9 beads in that row in total now. Now, there is another increase that you can do. I call this the intermediate increase. This is where we have our increase spread over 2 rows. And you see in the first row, I will just add my pair in the middle, as we did in the first version of the increase. And then in the next row, I will just add this 1 bead in the center. So the increase is a little bit more of a sudden, if you like. It's not the very slow increase. I call this the intermediate increase because there's even one faster version to increase stitches. So this gives me a plus of 2 stitches after 2 rows. I see here we have the same situation like after the second one, but also an increase always creates a little opening, as you can see below this little triangle of beads there. This is normal when you make these peyote increases. Now, you see we have not 9 beads, we had 9 beads, now we have 11 beads in our row. So I'm speeding this up a little bit. Here you can see my 11 beads in the row. Now, there is one even more dramatic increase, as I promised you. So again, we have to make sure that there is a low bead in the middle position. And as in the beginning, with all the other increases, I will add 2 beads in that center position. But the difference is now that I will always add 2 beads in the center position. So now you see when I come back to the middle here, I skipped a little bit. When I come back to the middle, I add another pair of beads here to the center. And of course, there is actually not really space for these beads, so they will be folding up like this. Just line the openings. Here you see they are standing up like this, and this is like a herringbone stitch. That's also why this increase, some people call this also the herringbone increase. It's a mix of herringbone and peyote that we're doing here with this alteration. So you see when you come back to the middle again, now we have to be careful that we don't miss to put in the beads in the right position. We increase our bead count by 2 in every row. That means when I now get back to the middle, I have to add 1 bead on top of the blue bead there below. So you see I'm adding my first 2 beads here, and then in this little gap between the pink and the silver bead, we have to add 1 more bead on top of the blue bead. And we will do the same after that increase, but again, we put a pair of beads in the center. I told you we're increasing 2 beads every single row. So again, you see this gap is very small, and that it easily happens that people miss to put that 1 bead in the position there. And in the next row, when you weave back, you will have to add a bead on top of the pink bead before and after the new increase, and add a new pair in the center. So this is a very fast increase, and you see that my piece doesn't stay flat anymore. So it starts curving already. And these dramatic increases, that's what you use for these geometrical beadworks. So you can make the most fantastic shapes by working with increases in this peyote stitch. Now, how to make an increase on the edge. You see I'm exiting here from my last bead. And now I want to add a new bead on the end. Then I need for the next row another new bead on the end, and I need the bead which will be on top of my last bead here. So I'm stringing, for this increase, I'm stringing 3 beads. I skip the first one and pass through the second one. And now let's see how the beads are lining up here. So I have my new bead of the lower bead and the upper bead, and then the new bead on top of the last one. But these are not really connected properly. You see, every bead in peyote stitch always has 2 neighbors. So we also have to give our new beads on the end 2 neighbors. And you see, I was exiting from that last silver bead here in the row. Now, this first bead here is just joined to the blue one. The bead below is just joined to the silver one. And we have to connect these beads with the other neighbor that they're adjacent to. So what I do now, you see I'm exiting from my second silver bead here. So then I turn around. That's very easy in peyote stitch. You just go through the neighbor bead in the other direction. And I'm exiting from the second silver bead on the edge. That's what I want to join my left blue bead to. So you see, I want to pull it over so that it's connected to both silver beads. And I'm just passing through that blue bead and pull it over like that. And now I have to join the other blue bead to the other neighbor. And the other blue bead The other blue bead has to be joined to the silver bead. So I'm exiting from the blue bead, and from there I pass through the silver bead, which is a little bit to the left. I join it to the blue one, of course, because I strung them together, and now I join it to the silver bead. So I'm pulling my two outer beads, if you like, I pull them half a position over to the left in this way. And you see when I pull it tight, then they are moving over to where they belong. Every bead always has two neighbor beads. You will see when I keep going, then everything is snuggling up. Now, let's have a look. So I added my first bead here. The blue bead is the first bead, the sticking up bead in this row. The other beads are in their position. So I continue with my row from there. Always double check that your sticking up beads, that every second bead is a sticking up bead. Now we do the exact same thing on the other edge. As I have an odd count here, the situation is exactly the same. You see, I'm exiting from the last silver bead here. I string 3 beads, the 2 outer beads, and the 1 bead, which is the last bead of my row that I want to exit. Then I make the turn, exiting from the second silver bead here on the edge. Pull my blue bead, the left-hand blue bead, a little bit over to the left in this way. So the blue bead is joined to the both silver beads, and then the second blue bead, which is only joined to the other blue bead below, is now getting joined to the other silver bead. And you pull it tight. You have to give your beads a little push at that point, and then you can keep going. But here, as we usually have the problem, we're in the wrong position. We're in the middle here. But here it's very easy because I can just exit from the last blue bead here. Why? Because by adding 1 bead, my complicated change or my complicated turn was moving to the other side. You would see, remember, my complicated turn was on the top edge there. And now you will see that my complicated turn moved over to the other side by adding a bead on the right and on the left. You will see when I keep going there with the pattern, when you continue that, you will see that these beads are lining up nicely in the end. Also, I'm demoing here with normal seed beads, just to show you that peyote stitch works with every bead. When you do this with cylindric beads such as delicas, it's probably easier, but the problem is they are very tiny, and then there's barely something that you can see in these demonstrations. So I just add another row to show you how the things will be lining up, and you see here my last position. The easy turn is on the top edge, and you see how the things are lining up. So we have an increase by 1 bead on either side, and everything is lining up, everything is symmetrical. Always double check that when you do peyote stitch, that your situation is still symmetrical. Now, if I want to make an increase with 2 beads on one edge, this is even a little bit easier. Then I exit from my last bead, I string 3 beads, and now I'm pushing them onto the edge, and I'm passing back through the first of the 3 beads here, you see? Passing back through that bead. This is out of the screen now. Very unfortunate, but you will see it when I pull it tight. So here you see the situation. So I strung 3 beads, I just passed back through the blue bead, and then I add my next bead, which is the silver bead. So here I have an increase of 2 beads in total in the count, but I have this stupid little step in there. You see, the outer beads is sticking out, and if I want to have a nice increase here, it's very, very easy. You see, I just turn around again. I'm exiting from the second silver bead from the edge here. not the top one, but the one below. And then I can just string the missing bead here. And then I can forward to the bead where I'm supposed to continue. And this is the second silver bead. Remember, I was already adding the first silver bead of my new row. And also, in this case, we can do the same thing on the other edge, on the other end. Because we have an odd count peyote here, and it's the same thing that we're doing here. So I will exit from the last bead. My last bead is missing in the back stitch. So I string my 3 beads as I did on the other side, and I'm passing down through that last bead here. Now everything's better in the spot, so you can see what I'm doing. I have to give the beads a little push that I get this little T shape here. Now I'm adding my last bead in the back stitch. That was the missing bead here of my row. And now give it a final push, and then we have this little T shape here. And again, I turn around, so I go pass through the bead next to it, going in the other direction, exiting from the edge, string my missing bead here, and add it. If you just follow the rule in peyote stitch that you always take care that every bead always has 2 neighbors in the grid, then and always sitting in between the 2 neighbors. That's the view that you have to get used to, and then you can experiment everything that you like with peyote stitch. I will make an extra video about how these increases look when you work peyote in rounds, but this is going to be an extra video because there's a lot to say about working peyote in rounds as well, as you might already guess. And so this is it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel that you don't miss the future videos. Bye bye.